This is Herald-Times sports editor Chris Korman, joined by Hugh Kellenberger. He's in row 2. Dustin Dopirak. We're here in the press box at Memorial Stadium. Terry Hutchins making a cameo. Hi, Hutch. Hutch. Yeah, where to begin? Ohio State. Pretty impressive tonight. Tonight.
No, they absolutely, defensively was, I guess, the most impressive. I think 18 yards on 26 carries is all Indiana managed. Willis didn't look anything like he did last week against Michigan. They just totally swallowed him. There was no running lanes at all. And as Lynch said, he tried to keep going to it because he didn't want to become the sack fest.
Sure.
Thought that was the way it was going to go if they started passing, and they just couldn't get anything done on offense at all. And Terrell Pryor, of course, was unbelievable.
Hugh, your thoughts on Pryor? I mean, obviously you've seen a lot of great quarterbacks, but this guy's just a freak.
Yeah, he's a completely different kind of quarterback in that, I mean, it's his size. I think that's what makes him so spectacular. And that long stride allows him to be so much faster at 240 pounds. I don't know. He used his arm at times tonight, but he didn't really have to.
Yeah. He really never does get tackled. I mean, there was one time when he was sacked, and I think there was 4 guys on him that I don't think he actually went down.
Right. The other thing is that Indiana defenders, I think, constantly thought that they had him exactly where they wanted him.
Yeah,
that he was going to have to pitch the ball, because that's the strategy. I mean,
make him give the ball to someplace else, because those guys aren't as fast as he is.
Stretch it out, and then that way, you can have guys come up on the corner. And I think repeatedly they thought that they had him, and
he just made a quick move,
and then
he
turned upfield, and he's gone. I mean, just like that.
Right.
And Curlew said that they had underestimated his speed, and I wonder, we watched the scout team. They did not use Ed Wright Baker as the scout quarterback.
Well, they've been using, and they did this last week at Michigan. They used Nick Turner a lot, giving him the ball. They didn't do it so much in like wildcat situations, but it was like they used the freshman running back Nick Turner to kind of run and give some idea of the speed. But I think in part though, there was just no simulating that. Basically, I think, as Curlew said, I mean, I knew he was fast, but I don't think you can realize how fast 4.3 is in a quarterback that's 6'6", 240 until you see it up close.
Right. Yeah, it's just an amazing player. Obviously, he needs to work his arm a little bit, needs to complete things. But Indiana, Jamie Curlew was, always good, always a good interview. Pretty stoic after the game. Said, we came out flat. We need to move on. How do you think the Hoosiers played? How do you guys feel that they actually played, just on their scale that they've set?
It's one of those combinations of the two things. When you're playing a team that's that sort of superior to you, things kind of get sloppy when you see it slipping away. I think that was a lot of the reason for the penalties, a lot of the reason for a lot of the bad things, is they just kind of realized that they're playing a team that's beyond them, and they try to do a little bit too much. But again, I guess the biggest thing is everyone will say, you got to give Ohio State credit. They clearly dominated in every single facet. Their O-line that's supposedly inexperienced just killed Indiana's defensive line. It as good as
you just saw them moving. They just moved the whole pile.
Yeah, exactly.
The snap of the ball, and it was wherever they wanted to go. They were going.
And when there was a pass, there was a pocket. Basically, Ohio State's guys were just staying on their blocks, as Curlew kept saying. They just could never get past, and they could never get to Pryor. And on the rare occasions they did, obviously they couldn't tackle.
Yeah, you got to give credit to their offensive tackles. They really moved.
Curlew
where they wanted him to go, and allowed Pryor to make those runs. There was a lot of times where they allowed Milton Curlew to just run upfield, and Pryor just scoots right through him. And that's good blocking, and that's the kind of blocking that Indiana needs. Indiana doesn't have.
All right, 7 games left in the season, and certainly enough seem winnable that this Indiana team can go to a bowl. There are several bowl reps here tonight. Obviously, they're in the discussion. Hugh, where do you see this team going from here? What does it need to improve if it wants to get to a second bowl under Bill Lynch?
It's there's 3 games: Virginia, Northwestern, and Purdue.
And Illinois, though. Don't forget Illinois.
Well, yeah, maybe Illinois, but I think those are the 3 games that if you're Indiana, you got to say we got to win these 3. And then Illinois is the one that you get to 7, or in case one of those 3 doesn't work out, you can still get 6. But I think that if you look at that schedule, those are the 3 games that are really winnable for this team.
There's a lot of people that are panicking after this, and we saw in the chat, same old Indiana. But again, I think who didn't think this team would be 3-2 right now?
Yeah, right. That
Michigan
is
and Ohio State.
How
different?
They're going to be 2-3.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of people thought they would be in a different situation than they are right now. Maybe after last week they thought this one would be closer to be more competitive. But at the end of the day, they're 3-2. They're where you thought they would be.
And the Big Ten has proven to be a pretty tight pack. We discussed it on the chat. I think Ohio State is probably the upper echelon right now.
Right.
And then, but Iowa, which I think is good, but I'm still
Iowa,
not totally
Michigan,
sold.
and Penn State are
Michigan,
all those
not
kind of three
sold.
teams that you're like, all right, they could be really good on a given day, but they also can be shaky at best on a given day. This Ohio State team looks pretty solid, especially because they're defensive based as well. They have a very, very solid defense. You get the feeling that the floor isn't that low. You don't know how high the ceiling is with this team, but the floor isn't that low.
It's a typical Ohio State team. These are the teams we watch Jim Tressel take to national title games. Usually get blown out, but
other than Miami.
But find ways to win. Just be solid, and that's this team. But I think Indiana, going into Virginia next week. Obviously Virginia, which has had some terrible losses this year.
Finally got some life today.
Goes and beats North Carolina.
Yeah.
So it's
you never know what could happen for the next three, but these, this is where you expect them to be at this point.
Yep. All right. Well, we've solved it.
Yeah,
exactly
that's it.
Where they're supposed to be. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you this week. We'll have some more coverage on the Scoop and
have some basketball this week.
Herald-Times.online.com. Yeah, basketball later this week. Basketball Media Day Thursday.
Thursday. Yep. I'm excited.
Exciting. There were a bunch of recruits here tonight. The team was down on the field before the game. Obviously, people are turning their attention to that. It's getting cold out, and that means one thing in Indiana.
It's basketball.
Basketball time.
Yep.
But football team worth watching, too. So we hope you'll join us for our coverage. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.